Good evening. You will, no doubt, have read in the newspapers this morning or heard on the radio today the harsh news that there is little or no hope of any relaxation in the present water supply hours between now and next spring. Because the prospect is a dismal one, I wish to speak about it to you myself this evening. I'd hoped that with the end of the rainy season, our reservoirs might be filled to a more encouraging level, and that I would be able to bring you news of some relaxation in the rigorous restrictions which you have been enduring with such patience for so long. But this is not the case. The hard fact is that the rains this year have produced less than even the most pessimistic have forecast. You will recollect that approximately 4 months ago, on the eve of the severest restrictions which Hong Kong has ever experienced, the Colonial Secretary broadcast to you and outlined the problem which faced us during the summer months. At that time, the storage in our reservoirs was 1,600 million gallons, and virtually no rain had fallen for 7 months. The spring rains of April and May had also failed. But the 4 months in which normally the greatest amount of rain falls still lay ahead, and I had expectations that with normal rainfall during those months, it would be possible for me to relax controls progressively. The longed-for rain did not fall. As you know only too well, freak weather prevailed throughout the summer, and the 5 so-called wet months, from May to September, produced only 31.5 inches of rain against an average of 67.5 inches. We have, therefore, come to the end of the rainy season with only about half the storage in our reservoirs we had at the same time last year. Over the past 12 months, there have been only 40.78 inches of rain, compared with an average fall of 85.39 inches. So acute has this drought been that, had it not been for the emergency measures which government has undertaken to exploit all possible alternative sources of supply, we could not have maintained the existing distribution period of 3 or 4 hours every 4th day. I have nothing but praise for all concerned with these emergency projects, and notably in this connection, the staffs of the Public Works Department and the Marine Department and the Chartering Committee with its advisor, Mr. Trineri. The speed and ingenuity with which they went into action have been remarkable. I doubt whether any government has ever before had to become a tanker charterer on such a scale, with such a cargo, in such conditions. So far, the tanker fleet has delivered 850 million gallons of water, a not inconsiderable proportion of our present total storage. And while on this achievement, I should like to draw attention to the cooperation which we have received from the Guangdong authorities. Their assistance throughout the operations has been invaluable. Yet another striking example of ingenuity in placing to good account all possible resources has been the pumping operation in the Indus River. From this, we have drawn another 1,500 million gallons. Since the Colonial Secretary spoke to you 4 months ago, our reservoir storage has increased, and this in spite of the poor rains. It has increased from 1,600 million gallons to 4,750 millions. And when you reflect that our emergency measures have produced rather more than 2/3 of this amount, you will realize how much more critical the present situation might have been. The emergency measures have been really significant in their impact on the situation and in the extent to which they have mitigated critical developments. We have been able to avoid the individual rationing of water, and I wish to affirm that we shall persist in our efforts to ensure that we are not forced to such drastic action at any stage in the future. As you will have heard, the tanker fleet will probably have to operate throughout the winter, despite the very heavy cost, and this, coupled with our hard-won reserves, will do much to help us maintain the ration through the dry months which lie ahead of us. We have, however, our problems here, since we are meeting with difficulties in the Pearl River, which we believe will reduce the amount of water we can bring in. With the approach of dry weather, salinity increases at the lower anchorages, while at the higher anchorages the number of berths is limited. But we are preparing ways to overcome these difficulties and to make effective use of our present tanker fleet should these natural obstacles prevent us deploying it to full advantage in the Pearl River. We also intend to maintain pumping operations at the Indus for as long as we can. Lastly, there is the additional help from our neighbors in the form of water from Shamchan. We have now entered on a new year of supply. In a normal year, we are due to receive 5,000 million gallons. But in the event of unusually low rainfall, the exact amount is subject to special arrangement. We hope to know soon how much this will be. But even if the quantity is something near the usual amount, we shall still need to import water by tanker to achieve our aim of maintaining the present period of distribution of 1 day in 4, and at the same time preserve for the end of the dry months before us a margin of safety. I'm satisfied that we have turned to account every available means of increasing supplies for the short term, and you may rest assured that we shall sustain our efforts vigorously and with determination. Nevertheless, the essential element in our dilemma remains the quite unprecedentedly low rainfall this year, and in consequence we have no alternative but to accept the present severe restrictions for a further period of months. This is a dark and disappointing picture, but I, for one, have drawn great encouragement from the way in which, despite the restraints and hardships, the people of Hong Kong, and especially those in poorer circumstances on whom the necessary controls have borne most hardly, have responded to the challenge with resolution and with good humor. I'm sorry that I have to ask you to display these qualities for longer still, but I do so confident that you will continue to meet the demands of the emergency situation. Industry also has handled its water problems calmly and resourcefully. We can be sure that it will neither be disheartened nor flag in its efforts. The subcommittee which government set up to look into requests from industry for additional supplies will, of course, continue to render all the help it can. I'm determined that government will do everything possible not only to maintain our position in the immediate future, but also to prevent a repetition in future years of drought of the hardships we have all undergone this year. You will have heard that government has accepted the advisability of recourse to desalinization of salt water, subject to it being feasible in our conditions at a cost which our economy can bear, to do so as a means of providing a supplementary supply of water to ease restrictions in drought years, a form of insurance, and in normal years to help us towards our goal of round-the-clock supplies. You will also have heard of our longer-term plans to add to our Plover Cove storage with a variety of flood pumping projects. We have taken steps to engage consultants to give us the best professional advice on these and on other matters. But these schemes are for the future. They will not help us through the winter months before us. And I should like to end by saying a word about the consumption of water and appealing for the fullest possible cooperation of everyone in keeping this down to the absolute minimum. Between now and the onset of next year's rains, it is up to each one of us to carry on conserving our slender supplies most carefully. I do not pretend that it is at all easy to be vigilant and economical all the time over such an extended period, but the harsh reality of our situation demands that we be just these things, unremitting in our vigilance and economical to the point of parsimony in the use of precious water. In our state of dependence upon one another in this small community, not one of us can afford to let his guard drop. The consequences of individual slackness affect the whole community. So there it is. The facts of the situation in which we are placed in this year of drought are before you. They are not agreeable ones, but they are challenging. And I'm certain from my past experience in other fields of endeavor and trial through which Hong Kong has passed, that we can all rely confidently on the response which the community as a whole will make in the face of this challenge. It will be the right response. This challenge. It will be the right response. This challenge.